Hey guys, Tom here again from synthhacker.com. Welcome back to another tutorial for Serum. In this video we're going to be looking at this Diplo style trap lead. Really cool. There's some really interesting modulation going on here. It was actually inspired by the lead from his track Set Me Free. I wasn't going for exactly the same sound, but it is quite close. I think his is a little bit more like hissier. It's got like a bit more noise and kind of a little bit more texture as well, whereas this is kind of a bit more harsh, I guess, or like a bit more aggressive. But it's a cool sound anyway. Like I said, you could hear some really weird modulation going on using this macro control, which I'll go over at some point. And that's just kind of being automated in the background. If you kind of want to watch again in the demonstration, you'll actually see where it's being modulated if you want to kind of do a similar thing. But yeah, that's pretty much the sound. There's a lot going on, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly while still trying to explain everything from scratch, of course. So I'll go ahead and initialize the patch. As always, guys, these videos are supported by my products over at my website over at synthhacker.com. If you haven't done so already, definitely go ahead and check those out. Definitely check out the mega pack for Serum I've got, which has over 600 presets at the time of making this video, covering like a really wide span of genres. And yeah, thanks in advance if you decide to go check that out. It really does help support me and the channel. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start making this Diplo trap lead. There's a lot going on and a lot to cover. So the first thing to kind of go over is the wavetable, which has become a really popular wavetable, especially for like the like trap sounds, like stuff like snails and a lot of the sounds that like Owlzer are putting out and like Getter and stuff. I think I've done a tutorial using this wavetable before, I can't remember, but it's really cool. It's also a really good wavetable for like Z style razor basses and stuff like that, because it's just got this really weird sound. Really interesting sound you get when moving the wavetable position, and that's really kind of like moving the wavetable position is the main way I kind of achieved that really weird modulation effect, which I'll go over. So the first thing to set up is the amplitude envelope. It is quite a short envelope. It's not so, it doesn't really sound too much like a pluck, but it is like, because we're not really modulating the like a low pass cutoff filter with the envelope, but it does have kind of like a short amplitude envelope, which we're just gonna set up with a little bit of decay. And just a tiny bit of release. Make sure that the sound is also mono, because we do want to kind of glide from note to note, as you'll have heard at the start. And I think I set it to legato as well. In the noise oscillator, just to kind of fill out the frequency spectrum, we used the micro Korg noise, I believe it was, which I just left at the kind of default pitch. And the level just kind of left that where it was as well. And we are going to be routing that through the filter as well at some point. Now I'll set the filter up and then I'll go over the macro control. So this is something that also brings out a lot of kind of like squeezes a lot of cool sounds out of the sound as a whole. Is this multi high peak filter, which I think was the filter that I used in the other trap lead tutorial I did. I can't actually remember. I think it was this one anyway. And this is just really cool because it's a multi-mode filter, and basically HP doesn't stand for high pass, it stands for high pass filter and a peak filter. So it's really cool. So it's kind of like two filters in one, which kind of opens up a lot of really cool modulation possibilities that we can do. So what I did was routed oscillator A through this, as well as the noise oscillator like I mentioned. Brought the cutoff down a little bit, and then set this macro control up onto the cutoff of the filter like this, and then the macro onto the resonance like this as well. So you see when the macro is pushing the cutoff off, because we're also putting a really high resonance, it really kind of highlights specific parts of the sound, which is really cool. So yeah, we're going to put the resonance about halfway, something like that. bring the cutoff down again up to about halfway, and then we're going to push you can see this is like our kind of like second filter, which is the peak filter. We're going to push this all the way to the max, and then use this macro on this as well. So this is going to be kind of moving when we automate this as well, which is going to be really cool. The other thing that we're going to use the macro to control is, first of all, the pitch of oscillator A, the coarse pitch, which is like the master pitch. And I think I put this to like 13. It just kind of worked out at the notes that I was playing. You might want to mess around with this until it sounds right, like musically, for whatever track you're working on. Yeah, but I think, yeah, I had this on like 13. And then what was the other thing? And then finally, yeah, the macro was assigned to the wavetable position. So now we've got this kind of like one macro, which is controlling like a lot of different parts of the sound. So if I just play this, you can hear that's just like some really, really weird modulation. And if I play it an octave lower, really, really cool. And the kind of, it would obviously sound better when you're playing like decent notes, so you've got a good melody. But yeah, you can just kind of like automate this, play around with it. And it's just a really kind of powerful way to achieve just really crazy modulations just from one sound. You can just get a lot of different sounds out of it. The other thing that I did was also add an envelope, a really kind of short decay envelope to the master tune of the sound. Where is it? So yeah, envelope 3, and then global master tune, which I just moved up like just a little bit. I think like about 12 or something like that. And you can hear, if you put like a really short kind of like decaying envelope on it, on the master tune, it kind of adds this like percussive element to the sound, which helps it cut through the mix a little bit more. And that's something I like to do occasionally on like bass sounds as well, to kind of add a little bit of punchiness to it, which is really, really cool. The next thing we can do is go into the effects section. I think we're finished on this page. The first thing I did was add a little bit of distortion. I think I just used tube distortion with just a bit of drive, just to kind of drive the sound a bit and add a little bit of saturation, tube distortion. And then next, I think I just added a really subtle bit of chorus just to kind of thicken the sound up a little bit. And then I use an EQ just to roll off some of the like really, really high end, like the harshness that was kind of around like 15 or about 14 13k or something like that. So I just brought this down like a little bit of a roll off high pass filter, and then left this little bump here, this like little resonance peak, to kind of emphasize like the high end that we do want in the sound. And then I used a reverb, which I put after the EQ. I left the mix and size mounts pretty much where they were, and the high cut, but just brought up the low cut a little bit. And then this really, really cool effect, you'll know if you've watched any of my other like Serum tutorials, something that I like to do on a lot of lead sounds is use the multiband compressor to really kind of suck up all the like little details of the sound and really make it stand out. And I think I might have done this on the sound before, but it's really, really cool if you add, especially when it comes to trap leads where you really want to kind of fill up the space, is put in a multiband compressor like after the reverb, because basically this like sucks the sound out of the reverb, but then whenever the sound's not playing, it brings the reverb up, which is really, really cool. I'll show you the effect that this has. Hopefully the modulation, the automation that I've set up still works. I'll just see. So you can kind of hear the effect that has, which is really, really cool. And I think that pretty much covers the sound. It does sound a little bit different to how it did at the start, but you get the general idea. I think if I bring the macro control down a little bit, that might sound better. Really cool stuff. So hopefully you got a lot out of this tutorial. You know, using the macros as a technique is really helpful. I mean, it's just a really cool way to really drastically transform sounds and get really unique stuff. And obviously, you know, you can just automate this macro within any DAW you want, which is really cool. So yeah, that pretty much covers the sound, guys. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. It really helps support me and the channel. Subscribe to stay up to date with new tutorials that I'm bringing out all the time. And again, if you haven't done so already, definitely go ahead and check out my website over at synthhacker.com to check out my presets for Serum. And I think that pretty much covers everything. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.